Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens begins with the birth of the protagonist, Oliver Twist, in a workhouse. His mother, who is not named in the early chapters, arrives at the workhouse and gives birth to Oliver. Sadly, she died shortly after the delivery. Mr. Bumble, the parish beadle, names the child Oliver Twist. One day, Oliver Twist ran up to London because he was afraid to die after his attempt to ask for more food resulted in being beaten with a stick and locked in a dark room by Mr. Bumble. Arriving in London, Oliver Twist met a strange-looking boy named Artful Dodger. Oliver Twist started to cry and told his story. After that, Artful Dodger gave him food and brought him to Fagin's house. Oliver Twist enters a dirty room and meets the old man Fagin, surrounded by boys. Fagin welcomes Oliver and they share a meal. Fagin shows off stolen goods, claiming they are for his old age. The Dodger and Charlie return with stolen items. Fagin plays a game with the boys, teaching Oliver pickpocketing. Oliver is forced to do bad things by Fagin, goes with others to steal silk handkerchiefs from an old man who is reading a book. When the Dodger and Charlie succeed in stealing, they hide. However, when the old man touches his pocket, he turns around quickly and he sees Oliver standing behind him. Oliver is wrongly blamed for stealing because the old man thought so and begins to shout at him, followed by the Dodger and Charlie. A kind gentleman, Mr. Brownlow, comes and supports him because he witnessed all the actual events, and Oliver goes to live with him. Oliver, recovering at Mr. Brownlow's house, experiences kindness and happiness. Eager to help, he volunteers to return books and money. On his way, he encounters Nancy and Bill Sikes, who forcibly take him back to Fagin's den. Fagin considers Oliver part of their group. Nancy, conflicted, tries to protect Oliver, but Fagin dismisses her. Oliver is locked in a room, terrified. Mr. Brownlow, unaware of the events, anxiously waits for his return as darkness falls. At 1:30 in the morning, Oliver, Bill Sikes and Toby went to a house in Chertsey surrounded by high walls. Knowing that this was a robbery, Oliver shouted to wake up the people in the house. However, because of this, Oliver was shot. Soon after, Bill and Toby took him to the side of the road, then left him. After Oliver regained consciousness, he walked and returned to the house that had been broken into by Bill and Toby. Seeing the injured Oliver, Rose Maylie and her aunt helped him. When Fagin sees Bill and Toby return without Oliver, he is furious. Monks comes to Fagin and demands him to make Oliver a thief and have him arrested by the police and sent to prison. However, Fagin explained that Oliver could not steal from people's pockets. His face was too young and honest. Mr. Bumble is unhappy as he is no longer the parish beadle, but the new master of the workhouse. He is married to Mrs. Corney, now Mrs. Bumble, but is unhappy with her as she is a hard, bad-tempered woman. One day, Mrs. Bumble asks him if he is going to sit there all day, to which he responds that he will sit there as long as he likes. Mrs. Bumble screams and cries, and Mr. Bumble tells her that he doesn't care. Mrs. Bumble then attacks Mr. Bumble, and he leaves. Mr. Bumble goes to an inn and meets a young man who asks him for information. At the inn, a man offered Mr. Bumble money in exchange for the locket and ring that his wife had stolen. Mr. Bumble agreed to the deal. Mr. Bumble and his wife met the man, named Monks, at a building near the river to exchange the items. After receiving the locket and ring, Monks threw them into the river. Oliver lived comfortably with Rose Maylie, but his enemies continued to pose a threat. Bill Sikes, weakened by a failed robbery in Chertsey, relied on Nancy's care for his health. Fagin, accompanied by the artful Dodger and Charlie, arrived to assist Sikes with food. Fagin sent the Dodger with a small sum while taking Nancy with him. At Fagin's den, Nancy feigned sleep to overhear Fagin's conversation with Monks. After Monks departed, Fagin returned with money for Bill, inquiring about Nancy's pale appearance. Fearing Bill's anger, Nancy explained her need to return to Bethnal Green. Nancy left Fagin's den, but she didn't head towards Bill Sikes's house. Instead, she rushed to a bustling hotel where she met Rose Maylie. Nancy disclosed Monk's knowledge of her and Oliver's whereabouts. Rose offered Nancy shelter, but she declined, opting to meet Rose every Saturday night on London Bridge. Oliver and Rose are in London, searching for Mr. Brownlow. Oliver excitedly tells Rose that he has seen Mr. Brownlow entering his house. A week later, Nancy meets Mr. Brownlow and Rose on London Bridge and tells them about Monk's and Fagin's plans. She describes Monk's and says she is scared for her life. Mr. Brownlow offers to help her escape from the criminal world, but Nancy refuses and insists on going home. Mr. Brownlow and Rose leave, while a mysterious boy follows Nancy in the shadows. Bill Sikes rushes back to Fagin's den after a knock at the door. Fagin reveals that Nancy has betrayed them by talking about their criminal activities. Despite Sikes's initial outburst, Fagin urged caution and secrecy in dealing with Nancy. Sikes goes home to confront Nancy, accusing her of being followed and revealing their plans. In a fit of rage, Sikes brutally beats Nancy to death. After the horrific act, he attempts to clean up and dispose of any evidence. Sikes, accompanied by his dog Bullseye, flees the crime scene, tormented by fear and guilt. As he walks through the night, he considers returning to London, but the presence of his dog poses a potential risk. To avoid capture, Sikes tries to drown the dog, but Bullseye escapes, leaving Sikes to continue his desperate journey back to London. Meanwhile, Mr. Brownlow confronts Monks, revealing that Oliver is Monk's half-brother, born from their father's relationship with Agnes Fleming. Monks and his mother had destroyed their father's will, which left half of his fortune to Agnes and her children. Monks had tried to ruin his half-brother Oliver by turning him into a thief, but now he was afraid due to Nancy's recent murder. In the end, Bill Sikes died by hanging while trying to escape from the authorities. Fagin, who had played a role in criminal activities, including Nancy's murder, was executed. After his death, one of his associates, Monks, fled to America, but eventually died in prison. Meanwhile, Mr. Brownlow, who had previously helped Oliver, welcomed him into his home and adopted Oliver as his son.